Somehow, Star Wars returned. Let's talk about the new Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars Unlimited trading card game. Hello there. It's Dan with Main Deck, and I just simply can't believe that we're making a video like this. I knew it had to happen eventually. I didn't know when it would happen. I didn't know how it would happen. I had no idea who would be publishing it, but we are here to talk today about the new trading card game announced by Fantasy Flight Games, Star Wars Unlimited. This is, by my count, I believe the sixth Star Wars trading card game that has been published. Star Wars has always been a part of the trading card game space, and it's only ever been gone for really a few years at a time before it ended up getting some sort of new publishing. And start going way back to the Star Wars CCG by Decipher, which was my first trading card game that I ever played, to Star Wars Destiny, which just concluded its run in 2020. There has often been a Star Wars CCG of some kind running around for you to collect and play. And frankly, it just felt wrong to not have one. So I am excited to say that there is another one coming. That said, I think we have some stuff to talk about here because this announcement is, in some ways, I feel like a little bittersweet, I guess, also. Let's start by talking about what Star Wars Unlimited is based on the limited information that we have right now. So, Star Wars Unlimited launched its information campaign with a press release, Fantasy Flight Games to release Star Wars Unlimited. There are some important things that are mentioned in this little article here. I want to point out this line right here. Straightforward mechanics are the driving force behind the design. It's clean and concise with no gimmicks, a card game in its purest form. Well, this does sound like PR talk to those who had played Destiny and watched the issues it had and its demise. This to me is clearly a line saying we are not using gimmicks like dice. We are keeping this a straight card game in its purest form. It is not an LCG with tokens and Death Star dials, I think. It is not a collectible dice game. This is just a TCG, a card game. Buy the packs, get the cards, build the decks, play the game. They also mention, I find this quite interesting as well. They call this Star Wars Unlimited, an all-new trading card game of unlimited possibilities. This game features iconic heroes, villains, ships, and settings from all facets of the legendary Star Wars franchise, including movies, TV series, comics, video games, and everything in between. Now, every name, of course, that we give a game is intentional with some sort of meaning behind it. I feel like if I had to speculate right now, because of course this is all the information we really have about this, Star Wars Unlimited obviously is named after their ability to access every single part of the franchise, including all of the things that have been coming out since Disney took over. And one thing I wonder about is if it is also something that means they are going to break a major convention of Star Wars card games that has almost always been the case in pretty much every Star Wars card game that's been published, which has been a battle between light side and dark side. While it's certainly possible that this game will continue this, the combination of calling it Star Wars Unlimited, saying it has unlimited possibilities, and saying that the game is clean and concise with no gimmicks, a card game in its purest form, I do wonder if they're going to break that convention and finally just make all cards able to be played with each other, and then perhaps instead just delineate light side cards working better, or, the good guys, the heroes working better with other heroes or things in similar franchises, parts of the galaxy, parts of the timeline. Basically, if they're going to choose to adapt just a simple, more archetypal design rather than forcing people to play only, light side cards with other light side cards, I think that's a possibility here. It does say it is a fast-paced dynamic game that is both easy to learn and strategically deep. That is a bunch of words that you could probably say about any card game you wanted to hype up, so I don't know if that particularly means too much. They say the robust development of the game has been underway for the past 3 years, and fans can look forward to a regular release schedule of 3 sets per year. I think it's really interesting to point out that this game has been in development for the past 3 years because that lines up with two things in particular. Number one, the release of The Mandalorian, the first Star Wars TV show, was about 3 years ago, really kicking off this new Mandoverse fueled Disney Plus era of TV that I personally really love because I am just a gigantic Star Wars fanatic who loves everything about Star Wars. But also 3 years ago is exactly when Star Wars Destiny by Fantasy Flight Games died. It does look a lot to me like as soon as Star Wars Destiny died, Fantasy Flight Games went to work on another TCG. And actually, if I think about that, that almost comes off to me like a good thing, if that makes sense. So I don't know, check my logic on this, everyone. But if, we never got like the full transparent reason why Star Wars Destiny was canceled. There are tons of things you can cite, from production issues with manufacturing the dice and the packs, which was seen in every release being late, delayed, having no ability to really keep a solid release schedule on the books worldwide, to potential player base issues or manufacturing costs, anything like that. There's a lot of things that you can choose to pinpoint as to why Destiny died. But I think one thing that this shows is that, assuming that they did start development on this immediately after Destiny died, that would indicate to me that they never were quite concerned about the player base not caring enough about Star Wars or a Star Wars game to play it. It would mean that maybe they felt it was more related to the specifics of Star Wars Destiny, whether they thought that the manufacturing of it was too difficult, too complicated, too costly, or whether they thought that the game as a collectible card and dice game had the issue of the gimmick turning people off of the game, which frankly is what happened to me to some degree. I'm someone who would much rather just play with cards than play with cards and dice. So Destiny never really stuck with me very much. Maybe you're the same. Let me know in the comments down below if you were a Destiny player, if you loved Destiny, or if you didn't like it as much because of that. But it does seem to me like as soon as they got off Destiny, they thought, okay, we're going to try this again. We're going to try to make the best Star Wars card game we can and release it in this new era of Star Wars with the TV shows and everything. And I guess if we're just going to say what we're hoping for, that's really all we can hope for is that, no, we can hope for more, but we can at least hope that they thought they were making the best card game they could with Star Wars at the helm, and spending 3 years to development is a significant amount of time. So, fans can look forward to a regular release schedule of 3 sets per year. As someone who plays a lot of TCGs, a 3 set per year schedule is one that is very good, easy to keep up with, I think, keeps things generally fresh. The key for Fantasy Flight Games, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, is going to be sticking to that schedule and actually meeting it every year. Not that they release too many things, that they might get delayed and release too few. So we'll see. Next line, fully integrated into the entire experience, organized play has been designed alongside the game from the beginning and will be ready on day one. From weekly store-level community experiences to worldwide large-scale events, there will be something for gamers of all levels to enjoy. I really want to believe in this part. Having organized play in from the start is absolutely critical for the TCG experience. Players drive a lot of the core sales of a game. They are the ones who keep the game afloat all the time. They are the ones providing a static interest in the game. And from our perspective at Main Deck, we are big players here, and this is what we want to see. We want to see events, and events like this are what drives sales in brick and mortar stores, which is what drives sales from distributors, which is how Fantasy Flight gets their numbers for how their stuff is selling. So really, it's a critical part of the experience, and I do think it's nice that they mentioned that it is designed alongside the game and ready for release day one. But we do have to see how that all pans out. By everything you would read here, one more important thing. Star Wars fans and collectors alike will be able to experience Star Wars Galaxy in a whole new way with never before seen refreshing new art. Dedicated TCG fans and collectors can look forward to seeking out alternate cards with special treatments and variant visual designs. So we saw right here in this opening, this is the big version of the art. This is the only piece of key artwork we've seen for the game, showing their new artwork, their art style here. I personally absolutely love this. I would love to hear in your comments what you think about this art style. I think this is gorgeous. I think these characters look perfect. It is very comic booky, which is okay to me. I don't mind that at all. If all the artwork looks like this sort of true to the characters. I mean, these look like the actors, but also maintaining some of that. It's almost got an 80s, 90s retro feel to it, which I kind of think is awesome for Star Wars. If everything looks like this, I think it's going to be a beautiful looking game. And the fact that they mentioned special treatments and variant visual designs, I think saying both of these indicates to me that obviously they're going to have things like alternate arts, alternate frames, but special treatments is the sort of terminology you would use if you're talking about various types of foiling cards or using, potentially, I guess you could refer to like acrylic cards and stuff like that way. But either way, it does sound to me like they are thinking about how card games are made today and trying to keep up with current trends. We can hope. One thing that I use to think about every new TCG that's coming out is the company here looking at what's going on in the market, repeating the things that work, and innovating where it's necessary. And sometimes only when it's necessary. Innovating when it's unnecessary isn't always a good thing. In this case, some of the things in this press release, from delineating the release schedule, mentioning the lack of gimmicks, including the reference to special treatments and variant visual designs, and the importance to fans, Star Wars fans, collectors, and players with the organized play, it does sound to me like they are hitting all of the important points that you need to hit if you are releasing a new card game these days. So all of that alone would have me fairly excited, but there is an elephant in the room that we have to talk about, and that is really Fantasy Flight Games. Okay, so where to begin with this? We don't need to belabor this point necessarily, but to put it bluntly, Fantasy Flight Games' track record with TCGs is not great. Fantasy Flight Games has had a total of 5 TCGs under their belt in the past, along with Keyforge, which is hard to count as necessarily a TCG. It's kind of a different thing. But the majority of those games have not lasted more than 3 years. And most of them, and as a TCG specifically, none of them have lasted more than 3 years. That is sort of alarming when it gets to the level of having 5 of them that have been that way. So for a quick history lesson, Fantasy Flight's first TCG was the Game of Thrones TCG, which went on for about 2 years before they transitioned and created the first LCG, like trademark LCG model game. And they turned Game of Thrones into an LCG with the Game of Thrones Living Card Game first edition, and then they did a second edition later. They also had the Call of Cthulhu TCG, which they then turned into an LCG. I believe that one is no longer in print, but you'll have to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. And I believe Game of Thrones is still getting new products made for it. I may be incorrect about that, but that's last I remember, that's what's going on. So comments, please let me know if I'm wrong about that. The other games that they've had are, they were in charge of the United States western side of the world release of Kingdom Hearts TCG, which was a game by Tomy, which is now Takara Tomy. And that one, they got, I believe, 4 sets in before they canned it, which was not even catching up to the Japanese release, unfortunately. That was around 2008. Also around 2008, they purchased the rights to Universal Fighting System from Sabretooth Games. That's got a wild history, but after they took it from Sabretooth, who was just losing the company, so they basically saved it from Sabretooth. They tried going at it for about 2 years, hemorrhaging players, doing everything they could, and ended up having to give the game up, which then got purchased by Jasco and now turned into the fairly successful game that it is as Universes and currently My Hero Academia card game. So that one at least got out of their hands and into someone who was running it well. More on that in a second. And then Star Wars Destiny, of course, lasted from 2017 to 2020. before they had to can it for whatever reason that they had to. So those are our 5 previous Fantasy Flight TCGs. And if you look at many of them, there are trends that you will see if looking, I've been digging into the past about how players thought about these card games while they were live and while they were ending, especially. And there are some warning signs, some red flags with Fantasy Flight games that we do have to be thinking about as we think about the release of Star Wars Unlimited here. One of the things that you see mentioned a lot is the lack of balance, successful balance, well done balance of the cards. This was a major problem within the Universal Fighting System game while Fantasy Flight had it. And many players will cite having many balance issues that led to stale metas, which led to poor tournament attendance and sales of new products. Now, I think that's completely true. I do think it's true that if you look into the past also, Universal Fighting System before this also had very poor balance. Even under JASCO right now, there are still bannings and errata for cards reasonably frequently, to the point where I do start to think if the game itself is just simply difficult to balance. That said, you can look and see Fantasy Flight games doing things to respond in the past, around 2008, 2009, to respond to this lack of good balance by hiring a new lead designer to take over, and many players reported that the game improved after that happened. And they were releasing some of the best sets ever when they had to, unfortunately, give the game up. But that was something that happened. You will also see Fantasy Flight games being blasted sometimes for their organized play support, or what you could say is lack thereof. Now, I will say that I think during the Destiny era, the most recent era, the organized play support actually wasn't too bad, and their plans for Keyforge organized play support were honestly pretty cool. Unfortunately, for numerous reasons, Keyforge ended up leaving them, and that's a weird story too about losing the algorithm or something. But during the Destiny era, they had some very cool events they ran around the country where they offered prize walls with acrylic promos of alternate arts of all the characters you could play as. They had local kits with nice alternate art promos and special tokens, acrylic tokens people could collect. And Fantasy Flight, in all of its card games, in most of its card games, I believe they typically offered tournaments where you could win the opportunity to design a card, which is always a really fun prize to have also. One thing Fantasy Flight has never been very good about offering is like cash prize support, or the kind of stuff that really pushes high-level competitive play. And I would say to not expect that from Star Wars Unlimited also. I don't see any reason why Fantasy Flight is going to suddenly change and start doing that. That isn't always necessary in a card game for it to have a successful organized play program. I'd say it's more important that the local prizes are enticing than anything else. And that the events that you travel to are... I guess the other thing is the events that you travel to do need to be spectacles, need to be memorable, and need to provide a good value just for attending. You will see some comments in their past about Universal Fighting System of having events that did not award anything except to the toppest of the top cut players, and even then the awards were sometimes very frowned upon. But you can also read up on instances where Fantasy Flight tried to respond to that and fix the issues. Overall, I think there are certainly things to be concerned about with the way Fantasy Flight has run their TCGs in the past, and I would think going into Star Wars Unlimited, you want to be thinking about whether that's going to be an issue again as well. I am willing to give Fantasy Flight games another shot, because one thing that is very different about right now is that this currently is an era where TCGs are extremely popular, and there have been a lot of advances in how TCGs are being run and how TCGs are learning from each other that afford Fantasy Flight games an opportunity to correct their past mistakes with this game. I think it will have to be seen as to whether or not they do a good job of that, but I do think it's quite possible for Star Wars Unlimited to do well. Overall, I would say I'm going to be cautious about Star Wars Unlimited, but cautiously excited about Star Wars Unlimited, because I am such a large Star Wars fan that I will be excited about this game no matter what. I am very likely to be purchasing product and playing this as soon as I'm able to. But the issue of being unsure of whether or not Fantasy Flight is going to do a good job with this, and then specifically releasing Star Wars Unlimited into an environment where there are so many other TCGs coming out that are vying for people's attention, that is going to remain to be seen how effective this release will actually be. I think there's a possibility, and I don't think a lot of people are necessarily talking about this, but I do think there's a possibility that some of the upcoming card games like Lorcana are going to start to unlock an even wider audience for card games in general, hitting demographics that weren't previously interested in this, and then opening them up to getting into games beyond the one that they get into. I think that is a distinct possibility to see from this, but I don't know if that outweighs the strain on wallets that's going to be felt across the world with so many viable, fun, and interesting TCGs that are going to be vying for your attention, especially once we get to 2024. It already feels like a lot in 2023, and it is currently just getting more and more filled to the brim with TCGs that are interesting and want your attention and your money. It's a weird time, I think, to do this because of that. Star Wars is in an okay place right now, I think, to release this. I think it's probably, it probably would have been better to release this 2 years ago, but then again, I'd rather they take the time and make the game good. But Disney did just announce several new movies that are going to be coming at some point, and the shows are still holding an audience. So there is a lot of content to explore and a lot of people who will be excited about this. I am one of those people. I am going to keep my eye on Fantasy Flight Games. I'm going to be watching to see what I hear them announce about this game. If they can assuage the concerns that I have given their past with TCGs, I will be very excited about this. But either way, I think you can expect on Main Deck to see some more coverage of Star Wars Unlimited as we get more information and as we get closer to the game's release. This is not going to be the kind of channel where I'm going to post speculation videos about what certain cards can do. I'm going to wait, as you've seen with our other card games, I'm going to wait till I've seen the cards and we'll talk about them then. But I did feel like, just being the large Star Wars fan that I am, that I had to get out some sort of video talking about my thoughts in general on Star Wars, on this Star Wars TCG and Fantasy Flight Games history with TCGs. So that's really all I have to give you guys today. I hope you found that somewhat interesting or informative. Let me know your thoughts down below, please, on Star Wars Unlimited. Are you excited about this game? Has Fantasy Flight burned you in the past too many times and you don't want to give them another shot? I totally can feel that. I get that either way. But for me, it's the siren call of Star Wars. I will be there. Unfortunately, whether or not I'm worried about the game ending soon, I will still be there playing the game right from the start because I love Star Wars. I really hope that Fantasy Flight is going to be showing that this is the time that they can get things right. And we'll just have to see. So let me know what you think down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video here on Main Deck. Thanks for watching another Main Deck video. Main Deck is sponsored by J-Dub Sports Cards and Gaming. Visit jwwcards.com and by our amazing patrons. Get exclusive content and other cool perks on the Main Deck Patreon. And hey, while you're here, I bet you'd like one of these videos. Go ahead, click one. I know you're gonna love it.